ATP Projects. Here with your hosts, Steve and Jeff. G'day, mate.
G'day, mate.
And today we're joined by two special athletes / celebrities, TV personalities. We've got James Newbury.
Hello.
And his girlfriend, Kayla Banfield.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm not so much of an athlete, but combined we are
She's
probably all
good.
of those things.
She's being modest.
James, obviously fantastic showing in the CrossFit Games. Your best ever finish, which is fantastic.
It is, yeah.
So, mate, talk us through the experience. How'd you go? How was it from beginning to end? My wife and I, Tony, who's obviously a mad CrossFit fiend, absolutely loves watching it. We watched every single one of your heats, and we tried to stay off social media, which isn't a hard thing for us actually, so that we could watch your events and see, and you know how obviously you went. Same with Cara as well too. And it was great. And I got really pumped actually watching the very first race, which was the
crit race?
Yeah,
Yep.
which was with like where you're on the bike.
Yep.
And man, I thought you were going to win.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, that was a really, really cool event. Like probably my favorite event out of any games event we've ever done over the last 3 years. So, and there was probably a bit of a consensus for pretty much everybody except the people that came off and fell.
yeah,
But yeah, no, the experience was, so much more fun than the previous 2 years. So 16 and 17 weren't as fun. This year was, this year had a lot more positive experiences than I haven't had in the past. So, and yeah, that crit race was definitely one to remember for sure.
So for those that are listening, that obviously they probably have an understanding of CrossFit, but the CrossFit, the games, you don't know what's going to come at you. Obviously, it's a multidiscipline. It can be anything, and a lot of people think CrossFit is just like Olympic lifting, per se, or some mad stuff like that. But there's endurance involved. I mean, there's swimming, paddle boarding. I mean, like it, and you don't know what's going to come at you. And this is where you say fittest on earth, because you've got to be prepared to hump the heavy weights.
Yep.
Doing like the deadlifts and the cleans and things like that. But you've also got to be prepared to run, like kilometers or cycle.
Correct.
So the first race that you had, can you explain what the race was?
Sure.
and sort of how it played into your strengths?
Yep. Yeah, definitely. So, funnily enough, during the off season, so after 2017, I was, not feeling great after the games. I was like probably a bit burnt out. I wasn't keen to get back into the gym, and so I needed to find something. Like I was getting fiddly, and I just wasn't training. So I thought, what are some things that I really want to do that now I'm in my off season? What can I do right now? And usually the first thing I go back to is I want to go surf. But another thing that I really wanted to do was I really wanted to try some criterium racing, and only because I'd heard about it. I loved jumping on the bike. I've never done a bike race before, apart from like a high school sprint triathlon, and that was only like 15 Ks or something like that. And also living in Adelaide City, we have Victoria Park, which is basically people go there. It's a crit race track, and it's a 5-minute ride from my house. So I can ride there as a warm up, and I can go register and ride a crit. And when I heard about this, basically after Kayla's brother told me that it was there and he was doing some crit races, I'm going to come out and do that.
So what is a crit race exactly? I'm not even sure.
So basically...
Does it stand for criterium?
Yeah, criterium, yeah. So the criterium is basically, it's like you race around a track. It could be usually anywhere from about 1.2 Ks up to about 2.5 Ks, usually somewhere in there. I think our racetrack's 1.4.
Right.
Or thereabouts. And you go around a track, and they can usually do it on a couple of different ways, but the way that we race them at Victoria Park is you're designated a certain period of time. So normally it's about 45 minutes. And so if you're doing a 40-minute crit, basically you'll ride around as a big group, and you can have breakaways and things like that, but you're basically racing for that period of time, and whoever crosses the line first at the end of that period is the winner. Usually what they'll do is, if let's just say they send off group A and group C together, so A being the faster riders and C being less experienced. Say they let us off together. If A are encroaching on us as we're about to do our final 2 laps, is when they ring the bell. So they'll ring the bell on the final 2 laps, and then they'll ring the bell again on the final lap. If they can foresee, the people that are organising, if they can foresee that within, you know, the next 2 laps that A is going to be overtaking us as we're about to do our last couple of laps sprint finish, they may call the bell at, say, 38 minutes instead of 40. Or it could be, you know, 36 minutes. So you've got to be ready to go at any time.
Right. But
usually it's around about the 40-minute race, and then they'll, you know, call the bell, and you'll have pretty much 2 laps to, you know, get to the front.
Yep.
And it's a bit of a tricky one, because with crit racing, you want to be using the least amount of energy possible. So you want to be drafting a lot. You want to be,
because this is obviously on a bike.
100%. Yeah, on a bike, and you want to be drafting. You don't want to be, you know, sitting in the lead, unless you're using it for more of a training exercise where you take the front, take the lead, let the legs burn a bit, drop back to 5th or 6th or somewhere there, and then kick it again. But if you're doing it, you know, because you want to win, then you want to try and be as reserved as possible, so you've got legs for the last sprint finish.
Yep.
Just on that too, and just watching your videos, of course, Down Under is the name of your video. So Googling, you know, James Down Under was a bit of a worry on my computer. If someone checks, they're going to be going, what's he looking up?
Yeah, it happened one time when I was Googling All Blacks. Yeah. You know, obviously I'm from New Zealand, so the All Black team.
You actually borrowed a bike to do this race. You're not actually a bike rider, are you? Is that true to say?
Yeah, completely. So, like, I rode like BMX bikes as a kid, but that's about it. That's the extent of my bike riding ability. I never, rode or raced, to any level. And I borrowed a friend of mine lent me his bike. I borrowed his bike, and I started just doing some training on that, and then. So when I, decided to go out and do a crit race, it wasn't my bike. I'd used it maybe 5 or 6 times, and then, just decided to go give it a go. And lucky enough, it was my size and stuff, and I got it fitted to me, and he wasn't ever going to ride it. So, I just, decided to give it a go, and it was lots of fun. And I think that actually set me up to, to do better in the first event at the games, because it was a crit race, and basically nobody else there had done a crit race, and probably never heard of it before.
So okay, just jumping right to the end. Who won that event?
So Adrian Munduala won that event,
right?
And
oh man, I was watching. I thought you had him.
Yeah, good on him. Like he did exceptionally well. He's a fantastic rider as well.
Do you think he went a little bit early? Like, because you went past him with about half a lap to go.
Yeah. So the way that track actually worked is there was a couple of hairy corners on there.
Oh, mate, we could see that.
Yeah.
It was a really dodgy track. Even Tony was going, wow, that track is pretty nasty.
And it was like there was potholes, and, on the last turn, basically, whoever was in the lead on that last turn was going to win, basically. That's probably how the best way to describe it. There was only maybe 150 metres left to go after the turn, and to try and pick up that extra, you would have had to have a pretty strong kick in that last 150, and if you've gone into that turn and you're already, 5 to 10 meters in front, it's a pretty big deficit to make up with a shorter period, like a short amount of distance.
Yeah.
But if I kind of knew, and going into that, I had a game plan that I wanted to be in the lead going into the final turn. So I tried to hit that final turn in the lead.
Yes.
And Adrian is a good rider, and we both kind of pushed it to the point where, if I kept going, and I could have kept going to try and get in front on that last turn, but the risk to reward was pretty steep. Both could have come off, or you could have come off. Yeah, we both could have come off, or I could have come off, and it would have been all for nothing. So I kind of weighed up the situation. And if he wasn't going to kick with me, like if I had, if my kick was strong enough in that final stretch before the last turn, and I was like, 5 to 10 meters ahead of him, obviously, cool, go into the corner, and then you just give it all you got.
Yes.
But when he saw me going for it, he kind of knew that whoever gets in front on this last turn is going to win. So he kept next to me the whole time, and we kept testing each other out, who's going to go the longest, And I got to the point where I was like, it's getting a bit tricky here. Just pull back and see what you got in that last little bit, and maybe he might not have anything left. And he did. And I was just like, second place is okay. Plus, he's a super nice guy. So it's all good.
Actually,
no nice guys in there.
Well, it's interesting, and there seems to be, some really good sportsmanship in there as well too. The person that I felt really sorry for was actually, I think it was the guy that finished second. Who's the guy that broke the pedal?
Noah.
Noah. Is he the Canadian guy? No.
No, that was
Vellner.
that's Patrick Vellner.
Yeah,
so Vellner lost his derailleur.
And that's right.
Yeah, and then
someone else snapped their pedal off.
And then Noah Olsen's pedal came off just
you know
came
what?
off somehow.
It's like Formula One. When you have you can have the best drivers in the world, but when they have a mechanical failure, it's nothing that they've done. It's nothing that they control, and it's one of those freakish things. I mean,
it's part of being an athlete, right?
Oh my
Unfortunately,
gosh.
and I think
equipment
it also,
malfunctions.
Yeah, I think it also tests you as an athlete mentally as well, because at some point in your athletic career, you've had something that's been outside of your control. But those that can go to that next event and put that behind them are going to do a lot better than those that get caught up on that. And Patrick Vellner is a great example of that, because he came, whatever it was, 38th.
Yes.
And then, finished the weekend in, second?
Second.
And he has such a good attitude, such a good
great.
attitude. And I think that's part of being an athlete, is having those adversities and then knowing that you have to put them behind you. And I know James struggled with that in his first year and has gotten a lot better at it over the years as well.
Actually, we're going to come and talk about James' mindset, because we spoke last time you came up before you went to the games. We were talking about your mindset. And I think that's obviously something that you've got locked in that I think a lot of people need to learn from. But Kayla, obviously, you were doing some hosting on the CrossFit Games coverage as well too, which is really good. And how did you go with the bias? I mean, was there? I mean, you weren't, by the way. You were fantastic, but I mean, how do you handle that?
I'm lucky because the work that I do is never related to the athletes. So I found it hard in the past when I've done interviews at the regionals, and for a lot of years, James was trying to make the CrossFit Games, and for a few years he didn't. And I found it really hard to interview the people that beat him, because deep down I wasn't happy for them. I was, I thought it was great that they made it, but deep down I was really upset, because I knew that James was going to be upset, and of course that rubs off on me. So that was the most challenging part, I think, was because you want to be happy for people when you interview them. And I think that, I did a pretty good job of just going, all right, Kayla, it's 2 minutes, just put it behind you. And I guess that's just part of the job. But at the games, I'm lucky. The stuff that I'm doing at the moment is covering social media. It's got absolutely nothing to do with the athletes. I found it hard to be a girlfriend and then work at the same time. But the good thing about James is that he doesn't really need me to be a girlfriend during competition. He kind of needs to do his own thing, and he has his support crew there. And sometimes me being around him can actually be a detriment, because I worry a lot. And if he has a bad placing, I'll say, are you okay? And then he starts to overthink, is he okay? So I actually try and step away from him at competition, and we now stay in different hotels, because we learnt the hard way that it's best for him to just be focused on his goal and for me to be focused on my work. We have different schedules as well. But luckily, I mean, I don't hide it. I am biased. I want James to win, and I'll say that on camera as well. But I also think that's part of it as well, because everyone has their favourites. So
but you must have had too many problems interviewing the winner for the last two regionals, did you?
Well, I actually wasn't
Who
there.
won that?
I wasn't there. So I was in America, and we joke about that. That's why he won, because I wasn't there.
Yes.
So in the past,
he came second in 16, and then
so I
first
interviewed him
and
then,
first.
and that
not bad.
was probably the best day of my life when James made the CrossFit Games for the first time, because it was such a massive goal of his that it just became such a massive goal of mine as well. And when he achieved that, I felt like we achieved it together. And I just remember the happiest feeling. There's a photo of me hugging James's dad, and then there's about 20 people from our CrossFit gym just around us. We just all felt so happy for James on that day, because it's just such a massive goal of his. But the last 2 years I've been in America, so I've been staying up late.
Just to rephrase this, you were in another country and he comes first. Yeah. Was that what happened?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Right,
I was
okay.
in America. So I was covering the regionals from America, doing all three regionals, and he was, obviously competing. So I haven't been there for the last 2 years, but, he's done pretty well. So.
He's done pretty well. I think first is pretty well. Yeah, first and first.
It's all right.
So that's not bad.
And actually, you were saying before about the community within CrossFit, and that's something again, and it's really funny because a few years ago, I don't really see it so much anymore, mind you. I don't look at social media a lot. CrossFit comes in for an absolute hammering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does.
But yet the thing I love about CrossFit, and Tony loved about CrossFit, and Dale, who works for us, loves CrossFit, is that there's that real sense of community and encouragement, which I think a lot of people miss. And I think that's part of the success, especially not for the elite athletes such as yourself, James, but obviously, people coming up, they're looking for that environment where there's that encouragement, there's goal setting. I mean, we all know in anything, whether it's in business or in life, it's progressive. Upping your goals and having a goal to hit to. I always used to say that when I used to do martial arts when I was younger, I'd seen so many people get their black belt and then literally quit. And the funny thing is, the black belt actually meant way of life. Like that meant that you were effectively good enough to start learning, right? Yeah. But that was the only goal that they set. That's the thing about CrossFit that's so great, is that you're. Yes, you can be doing, WODs and all the rest of it and competing to try and get into the games and all, but then...
There's no ultimate athlete. There's no finish line. There's no end. Even Matt Fraser, who's won, is it 3 years? 4 years?
He's crazy.
Many
good.
years.
Yeah.
Is still trying to be better and still trying to beat himself. And,
That's right.
And I think with the, the hammering with CrossFit, anything that's successful is going to have haters.
Yeah.
Like anything that does well is going to have some people that pick the areas of CrossFit, and there are areas of CrossFit that, aren't fantastic. But that just comes down to, I think, bad coaching. Like just bad people representing the brand, or not bad people, but people that may not be ready to represent the brand. And,
Yes.
unfortunately, that's the case with everything, though, every sport, and someone's going to find something to criticize.
Look, I mean, you can be critical of rugby, football, and with bodybuilding.
Healthy eating. People are critical of healthy eating.
Well, I've just seen a new news report that came out. Steve's talking about that they're now got, clinical proof that a low carbohydrate diet is going to increase mortality. So we need to break that down, right?
Right.
It's just
Save that
crazy.
one.
But you can be negative about anything. What I found funny though was that, and I'm not speaking about all aspects of the bodybuilding community, but it was specifically the bodybuilding community that I used to say throw up a lot of hate,
Yeah.
especially where it came around form. And
Yeah.
look, there has been some times obviously where people are going to failure. They're in a competition and their form starts to suffer.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say, well, okay, bodybuilding, you guys are all perfect, when
Yeah.
we see some of the judging complaints that go on, where
Yeah.
there's obviously it's not a time based or what have you. You can actually see, hang on, this guy clearly should have won. So
Yeah.
you can be critical if you want to be critical of any sport. But in terms of an ambassador for the sport, which obviously you guys are both great ambassadors for the sport, in terms of getting out there on the front foot and actually being a good role model, you guys are both fantastic. So what is it about CrossFit that really drew you into it? Because I know that you used to play rugby. In fact, were you a professional?
I was semi-professional. I was getting paid, but not very much. So I guess you could call it semi-professional.
Who'd you play for?
I played for South Logan here in Brisbane for a little while.
The Scorpions?
No, South Logan Magpies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then
is it rugby union or rugby league?
league.
Oh, right. Okay. Right.
And then played in Sydney for another year after that.
Yeah.
But before that, I played schoolboys. So I played schoolboys for so many years. But then I made an Australian team for under 15s, and then I made an affiliated States Australian team in under 18s as well.
Wow.
Yeah, 11 years you did rugby league, wasn't it? Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So were you born up here, or were you?
I was born in Katoomba in Sydney.
Right.
Yeah. And I lived in Sydney for about the first 8 years of my life, and then didn't play any footy there. I played soccer. Mum was a little bit worried about me getting hurt and my brother getting hurt. And then we moved to Adelaide after that, and I, would take up any sport to get a day off school.
So it must have been AFL down there, surely.
It was.
Right.
It was. But I played one season, didn't enjoy it. And then there was a carnival that came up, and I started playing footy.
Rugby league.
Yep. And I just took to it, just loved it.
What position did you play? I bet you're in the backs.
I was halfback.
Yeah, right.
I started in the wing. I think most people sort of take off in the wing, and so I started in the wing and worked my way in and played some centers, and then I moved into the halves.
Yep.
And then played a little bit of dummy half, stuff like that. And then as I went on, I ended up playing a little bit of lock as well.
Wow. So when was the change for you? When did you? I mean, obviously that's quite a lot of success, and a lot of kids that are listening to this. I know Matt's working with some of the development squads for a lot of up-and-comers. We're working with the Broncos as well too,
Yep.
sort of as far as a bit of advice and support. Where was that point where you went, okay, I'm not going to pursue that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be a professional in that. I want to change gears. I want to look at different sports.
Well, it wasn't actually a thought in my head that came around and thought, I want to change sports. It was actually the sport of CrossFit that intrigued me, and I was already doing CrossFit, and I thought, I like this more.
What year was this?
This was 2011.
Right.
But you wanted to do it to help your rugby, right? Wasn't that what the initial reason was?
Yeah. So basically, I found when I was living in Sydney in 2011, I'd moved there to play some footy there, and a guy from Adelaide that I'd sort of grew up around, he contacted me and said, "Oh, while you're in Sydney, you should check out some CrossFit gyms. While you're there, they've got some really good CrossFit gyms." It's kind of where it all started, like Brisbane and Sydney kind of started here for Australia for CrossFit. And I just said, yeah, cool. So I emailed a few of the local gyms, and this was January 2011, and we were about to go into our preseason. We were in preseason training for football. And he said, do it, it'll help your footy. And I said, yeah, cool, done, I'll do it. And I just started attending, and I emailed these gyms. I got 2 emails back saying, no, we have no positions available, because I actually asked them. I actually asked them at the time. It's like, hey, I'd like to learn about what you guys do. I'm happy to clean and do whatever to to learn.
Wow.
Because at the time I wasn't working. I just moved into Sydney, and then I got an email back from this one guy who ended up being the regionals director. So he was basically the Pacific regionals director, and he owned this gym down in Kogarah. And he said, yeah, come on in. I'd like to meet you. We have no positions available, but I'd like to meet you anyway. So I went down there, and he said, jump in on the class. So I jumped in on the class, and I did it, and it just totally wrecked me. I was just like, how is this hurting me so bad? It's just I enjoyed going to the gym. I enjoyed going for a run. I took it all quite seriously as well. And so I started mixing in, weights and running and cardio and box jumps and burpees and all these things that I thought I was good at, and put them all together and realized I wasn't very good.
Right.
So, or not as good as what I could have been. And there was, just people like everyday people just like wiping the floor with me. And I was just like, oh, well, I need to do this more. So I started attending a little bit more. And then after about 3 weeks of being there, the CrossFit Open, it was the first year of the CrossFit Open, it started. And I thought it was just a gym you go to train for your sport, just like any other regular gym. You either go there to train for bodybuilding, or you go there to train because you're a cyclist, or you're a swimmer, or whatever it might have been, football player. But this CrossFit gym, you could go there and you could train for CrossFit because it's a competition too. And I was like, what? That doesn't make sense. What do you mean? How do you compete? And they're just like, oh, it's just random tests, and you got to be able to do them all really well and beat the other person. I was like, oh, I like that. So
obviously competitive.
Very.
Love it.
Yeah, super competitive. I like to compete. I like to win.
Does he cheat at board games?
No, cheating is not something that James does.
Yeah,
no.
yeah. I would rather.
But he still lose, so it's just annoying.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He's frustratingly good at a lot of things.
Yeah, and yeah, so yes, so basically from there I realized you could compete, and then they're just like, you're going to do the Open, and it was like, at the time it was like $5 to enter. I was like, yeah, I can do that. So we did this Open, and it didn't do too well. I think I placed about 16 or 1700 or 1200, something like that, in my first year of the Open in Australia.
Yeah.
And out of about 2,000 males that competed that year, 2,500 males. And I thought, oh, there's no way that there's 1,200 other people that are fitter than me. Like, that's the label that you get given. And I was just like, okay, cool. I'm going to work on this. And then so I, kept training at the gym and kept, cleaning the toilets and mopping the floors, and Mick took me under his wing a bit and made sure that I was doing everything correctly. Very good coach. And it rolled around to the end of that season, and I was enjoying going to CrossFit so much that I was just like, I'm not going to play footy anymore. Wow. And it's like I woke up one morning, it's like, I'm not going to play footy.
So, and at that stage as well too, did you have a part-time job or anything like that?
Yeah, I was just working. I was working at Hertz at the airport.
Right.
I had my auntie had a connection, so she got me a job there.
And playing football, probably earning maybe $500 a week.
About that.
Yep,
about that.
So that's significant to walk away from that. As far as you must have really got bitten hard.
Yeah. Well, like, it wasn't like the season was going bad at all. We were undefeated all season. We won the grand final, and
wow.
And at the end, I was just like,
stuff that.
Yep, screw it.
Wow.
The thing is, I didn't want to get... I kind of waited up. I woke up and thought, I'm not really enjoying football as much anymore.
Yeah.
And I was pretty down about it. I was just like, why aren't I enjoying it? I should be enjoying this. It's like, I've worked so many years to get here. And then I thought to myself, like, what happens if 4 years down the track I'm still in the same position, not playing first grade? I should just, I should occupy my time with stuff that I really enjoy. And I decided to go open my own CrossFit gym. And I was just like, that's what I'm going to do.
The funny thing is that there's a great saying that says, do what you're passionate about, because, and as far as money, and this is a big thing with parents as well too, and but if I do this, when I was at school, I wanted to be a PE teacher more than anything else, right?
Yeah.
And at that stage, the TE score, because I'm really old, it's like the OP now, and I think they've even changed it again.
We had TR in Adelaide.
Yeah.
Was really high. And to get that, I needed to do Math 1 and Physics and Maths 2, and that's not my strong suit, right? So I forced myself into a box to do it. Anyway, ended up screw that. And then because I was failing, and so then I changed to things like drama.
Yeah.
And which is really weird because, you know, playing football and was a good athlete, but at the same time, you know, leading the musical at a state school didn't work, right? But I was happy doing that. And from that, on my own path, obviously developed what I really wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
There was two things I loved, health and video games. And I made businesses in both, right? But then I don't want to focus on ATP. But the world will always respond to mastery.
Yeah.
And you can make anything work if you're really passionate about it, because you'll continue to push yourself through when a lot of other people would give up if it was just based on money. And as you say, with you could have become a professional football player, but if the passion wasn't there, then, you know, one, you wouldn't get as much enjoyment out of life, and two, probably you wouldn't be anywhere near as successful. And I'm not just talking about it from a financial point of view, though that seems to come with people who are really passionate about what they do.
Totally.
Yeah.
When you've got that mastery, the world will pay for mastery because it's provides so much value, not only to you, but to other people around you.
Correct.
So
yeah, totally. And I completely agree. I think the gym became so successful so quickly was because people could, you know, but they probably enjoyed the mastery part of it. And at the time, it was still quite growing in Adelaide, but I was really passionate about teaching. Like, I really wanted to, you know, help people learn about CrossFit and why it's so good and why I love it. And I just wanted to, you know, just express my love for the sport to more people. And I think, you know, subconsciously people realized that. And then, you know, they sort of started taking to it as well, and they could understand why I liked it so much. So I kind of figure, at the time, I just figured that if I like this so much, surely there's, you know, 100, 150 people here around Adelaide that'll like it too. And why don't they come train with me?
yeah.
And it's not that tough because you haven't got far to go for work, have you, really?
No, not me, not at all. I've got I can literally scale on my back wall and be at work. Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it? I
pretty
love
cool.
We
that.
love
That-
convenience, that's for sure.
And the funny thing is, though, too, I talk to so many people about this, and there's probably a lot of people listening to this podcast as well, too, where I call it the Sunday dreads. You know, Sunday afternoon, about 3 o'clock, all of a sudden this horrible... Actually, Matt and I, who does all the audio-visual, we were talking about this in his last position, and it's like, yeah, you sort of... In the afternoon, all of a sudden you're thinking, oh no, it's work next week. And you celebrate Friday, thank God, you know, hump day, Wednesday, wherever. You know, obviously you don't feel like that. Every day for you must be just like, I'm passionate, I'm doing what I love.
Yeah, I don't even keep track of the days. Like, Monday is same as Saturday, same as Friday, same as Tuesday. It's all the same.
It's living the dream, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think as well, going back to what you said with the money coming from the mastery, is when you love something so much, you are happy to take risks. Like the risk to reward ratio, you're willing to take a risk because the payoff, if you do it well, is so huge. And I think that if you're doing it for money, sometimes you can be a little too calculated, and that leaves you in your comfort zone. Whereas like when James first opened the gym, and this is really similar to what you guys are doing with growing out of it, we had one tenancy and we outgrew that, and then the tenancy next door to us became available. And I remember within I think 24 hours, James was like, let's go have a look at it. We went in, we had a tour, and he was like, all right, we could put a reception there, we can chuck a float tank in there, we can put this practitioner there. Yep, that's going to work, let's do it. When most people would have been like, do we have the cash flow for it? Probably not. What do we need to do to make it work? Whereas James is the kind of person that has this vision, and he's so busy chasing the vision that it doesn't really matter the thoughts on the side, because he's actually passionate about having a recovery facility to provide for his members, that we took the plunge and it was worth it. But, you know, if you're doing things for money, it might be a little more calculated, and you may not, you know, achieve that success by just running straight towards your goals.
We did not have the cash flow for it.
Look,
We made it happen. We made it happen, but it just, for some reason, it just always works out in the end.
it seems to be that bumblebee effect. But you know, that scientifically bumblebees should not be able to fly, but yet they do anyway. And the funny thing is that I think it's that will, that passion, that drive.
Figure it out on the way.
ATP, we often say it's like building a kit plane as you jump off a cliff and build a
100%.
kit plane on the way down.
100%.
And you have to succeed. But the funny thing is that you've got so much passion for what you do, that it works, because you know you want it to work and it has to
And
work.
we're smart enough to find the solutions too. Like often when you take that jump, there's a solution to be made on the way down, and the brain has a really good way of figuring it out. Like sometimes when I'm on camera and the camera goes on, before I'm about to talk, I'm like, I have no idea what I'm about to say. And the camera will go on, and all of a sudden, bang, it just comes to me. But like sometimes I don't need to plan it, but I freak out so much about it, but I'm going for it. But my body has a way of going, here's what you need. You trusted me. You have to trust yourself, and you figure it out. There's a solution for everything.
Yeah. Yeah,
You just
yeah.
got to say yes and not have to have everything set in stone at the point that you say yes, but trust that it will come to you.
You bite off more than you can chew and then chew like hell. It's
Yes,
a famous saying.
do you know
Pretty
how
much
many
it.
times I've been told that I bite off more than I can chew? And at first it really annoyed me, but now I'm like, yeah, I do. And every single time I've made it work. And we've made a lot of mistakes, obviously, but I think you have to make mistakes to grow. And that's just part of it. But we get told that we're living outside of our means all the time.
Yep.
And those kinds of phrases
Yeah,
get
I've
thrown
been.
at us a lot.
Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Yeah,
and
it's fun.
and that's the mother of invention. Is necessity is the mother of invention. So you create new ways of doing things and finding out things that work. But the fact that you've been able to obviously take something that you're so passionate about and then help other people with it, and then become the best in Australia and the 18th,
yeah.
18th, which was obviously a pretty great result. So in terms of the actual games themselves, so it looked fascinating. And as you said, there seemed to be a lot of camaraderie there as well too. And Matt Fraser, oh my gosh. I mean, is he the next Rich Froning? I mean, like this guy is just on the next level.
I think he's in a category of his own.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even put him with Rich Froning. Not that he's necessarily better, but...
Yeah, I think it's probably heading that way.
Yeah.
I think he's won 3 now, and Froning had 4 in a row. So, yeah, he's got one more, and then he's tied, and then he's only got one more, and he's in the lead.
Yeah,
you know,
he just seems so dominant in that area. So, in terms of the sport of CrossFit, where do you see it going from here? Because I mean, obviously, it exploded. I was watching a picture, and I think it showed. Is it 2008? Was that the first CrossFit?
7 was actually the
7?
first, but 8 was a lot more promoted.
It
Yeah.
might have been 7 then, and it basically had this chain link fence and a few people sort of
Yeah.
huddled around one small sports field.
Yeah.
And now you see it. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my
Smoke
gosh,
show, yeah.
it's ridiculous. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's a
like
spectacle.
it is amazing.
Yeah.
So, you know,
well, yeah, it's sort of 07, 08, 09. We're all at the ranch in Aromas. So in 2016, we actually went back to Aromas for a days of events, and it was really cool to go back and see what it was like there. And it was hot and dry
Right.
and dusty.
where's Aromas?
Like Northern California.
When,
Right.
Yeah, you should have seen the first
Desert.
starters. The great run up the hill was the
Yeah.
first event, and it almost
Man.
killed everybody. And
Yep.
everyone fell down on the way
Yeah.
down. It was
And
great to
there's
watch.
No supporters there either,
Nah.
so they're kind of out there on their own with their own thoughts, and
Wow.
the vibe's different.
It's excellent.
Still to this day, it was the hardest event I've ever done.
That
Really?
run.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that looked horrible.
It
Well,
was.
Because was it the heat or was it the...
It was just hot and hard, and like I've done runs since then with guys that I did that run with, and like we did a run in Dubai when we were there, and a lot of the guys that I competed with in 2016 at Aromas that did that run, I said Aromas was the hardest run I've ever done. And we've done like sand dune runs since then, and those guys are like, oh, that was way harder than Aromas. I'm like, nah, not a chance. So I think it was probably just my fitness at the time that I thought was exceptional for running, but it probably wasn't as good as what
And we're talking to a runner here, Jeff, who does 18-minute 5Ks, who can run the 400 in 53 seconds. Is that right?
Yeah, close to them.
Yeah. So I
You
mean,
can do
this is
what's 53 seconds?
400
meters.
400
yeah,
meters.
about 55.
Wow, mate, you
Yeah.
fly. That's fast. So, you know,
55, somewhere around there.
what do you run 100 in?
Not so good over 100. Like my top end speed's not fantastic. 100 meters probably maybe just under 12 in the 11 somewhere.
Yeah, they're still moving it for. I mean, especially when you're considering competing against guys that are built like, you know, bodybuilders.
Yeah.
I mean, like you're pretty. You'd be quite fast over a relatively short distance compared to a lot of those guys.
As a kid, I was quicker for my age
The most, yeah.
And then as we all sort of hit puberty, they all caught up, and then a lot of them overtook me. Like
Right.
my brother's a good example for that. Like when we first started running, he would beat me, and then one day I just overtook him, and we're only 11 months apart.
Right.
He's 11 months older than me, and then out of nowhere, did no training whatsoever. I was training my ass off all the time, and just out of nowhere, he's just like, I guarantee I'll beat you in a race. I'm just like, it's not gonna happen. Like, are you kidding me? And we went out for a race, and he smoked me. I was like, what just happened in the last 12 months? It's just like, he hit puberty, and I hadn't hit there yet.
Well, we were talking to a runner who can lift, 242 kilos deadlift. That's right, isn't it? I mean, it's a quarter of a ton. We're talking if you want the scale. That runners don't lift that.
No, that's right.
Runners are weenie little, like me.
Yeah.
So, and how do you balance it out? I mean, obviously your goal is to do as best as you possibly can in the games, and we'll get to your mindset in a minute because I love your mindset, and I think people can learn so much about how you approach, and not just from sports point of view, success in life, business, everything. There's so much wisdom in what you spoke to me last time in terms of your mindset. But as far as how do you prepare yourself? I mean, obviously you don't know what events are coming. Obviously you've got pet events that you're strong in.
Mm-hmm.
How do you then look and go, and I know that you don't focus on the competition in terms of beating people, you just look to do the best that you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance out your strengths, your weaknesses, what you think the CrossFit Games is going to throw at you? How do you continue to improve through your training and through what it is that you're doing?
Well, see, I guess the tough thing about the games is, do you either work your weaknesses a lot to bring those up to standard, or do you make sure that your strengths are so strong that they're your killer punch events where you're going to, wipe the floor, because top 5 seedings in each event get a lot more points, like relatively than, after that. So do you want to make sure you can get a whole bunch of top 5 finishes, and then it doesn't really matter if you get, between 15 and 25 for the last set, or do you want to try and get all of them around, 5 to 15?
That's a great question.
So
I don't know.
That's, I guess that's sort of some people approach it in different ways. So some people might approach it that I'm just going to make my strength super strong.
Yes.
And then other people think I'm going to work my weaknesses, so I'm a very well-rounded athlete. I think in the last 12 months, I've been working a lot with Tia and Shane. Shane's Tia's husband, and he's been helping me a lot.
Tia Clear to me.
Yep.
Number 1 in the world at the moment.
Yeah.
She's amazing.
Yeah,
she was crazy good.
She is next level as well.
Yeah, she's ridiculous.
Yeah, she's all right. I'm joking. Don't write in. She's brilliant.
She's the epitome of fitness. She's mega strong.
Commonwealth gold medalist.
Yeah, she's just
in
crazy.
what?
Weightlifting.
In weightlifting.
Weightlifting. Yeah, I knew that. I just wanted to.
Yeah. Sorry.
Well, it's just like she's just like a very natural runner. So she grew up doing like cross country and stuff like that, and then she took to weights really well. She's a great swimmer, fantastic swimmer.
Yep.
She's just very well rounded, and she's got just that killer mindset that I'm going to win and I'll do what it takes to win. And she'll just, she just always is prepared. Like she just comes to play. It's just good. She's just a good mindset.
Yeah.
Good head on her shoulders. Where were we? What were we saying before that?
So in terms of how do you prepare?
Prepare.
Do you focus on your weaknesses?
Yes.
I mean, or do you say, right, I'm going to put 25% on my effort to bring my weaknesses up? So, I mean, at the end of the day, right, you're just trying to get that level up. So do you strategize and go, right, my weaknesses here, I definitely need to bring that up a little bit, but I'm going to continue to really ace my strengths?
Well, that's pretty much it, yeah.
Right.
You're totally correct. Is like in the past, I've, either worked my weaknesses a lot and sort of just hopefully my strengths just stay strong or stay medium. And then other times I've worked my strengths and said, what, I'm happy, like I'm willing, not happy, but willing to take some poor finishes if I can get some top 5 finishes.
Yeah.
This year, we worked everything. This year the volume was so high that like I wasn't sore after the games, and usually I'm like crippled by day 2.
Right.
But the workload that we were doing prior to the games, we spent some time in Cookeville in Tennessee.
Is that training at altitude?
No, we weren't at altitude, but we were at Rich Froning's house. So that's probably a good place.
Whose
to
house?
Same thing.
Rich Froning.
Oh, wow.
He's the famous.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you know Rich Froning?
No, well, actually, Tia and Shane had been there before to do some training and to do some videoing and stuff like that. So they had a bit of a contact there, and they sort of put the word out saying, could we come and train? And I was training with Tia and Shane at the time, and they said, come along. I was like,
That's
awesome,
nice.
I'll be there.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was, this year the workload was just so intense. I was working my weaknesses, I was working my strengths, and Shane was always just like, we're both good runners. Let's make it better. Make it better. But then the things that I'm not so good at, which is like, the more powerful events where you got to do a clean and jerk speed ladder, where you got to like back up your power and power and power. Like that type of stuff is probably the stuff I'm not as good at. but we were still doing lots of that too. So
Right.
if I hadn't worked it as much, like I didn't get great placings in those types of events still,
Yes.
but I can only imagine how bad they would have been if I didn't work it as much as I did.
Because it's really important to finish, isn't it, inside the allotted time?
Yes.
Because if you don't finish inside the allotted time, what happens as far as points is concerned?
So depending on what the minimum work requirement is, so if they have a minimum on there, if you don't reach that minimum, then you could get DQ'd.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So
Yep.
if they don't have a minimum work and you don't finish within the time cap, you'll just get you'll get seconds added to your score depending on what reps weren't completed. So let's just say you didn't finish 50 reps out of a 200 rep workout, and the time cap was say 10 minutes, you would get an extra 50 seconds added to your score.
Right. So effectively, you'd lose points on the leaderboard.
Well, yeah, it depends on where. So say if you rank between, let's just say you come 30th out of 40,
Yep.
that point allocation might be, I think it's like somewhere around 20 or 15 points.
Right.
Whereas you've got a maximum of 100 if you win it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you obviously want to be higher up that as a consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't really want to have any super poor finishes. I think Matt Fraser's poorest finish was 11th.
Which is outstanding. I mean, and I know that's what they were saying. And I mean, again, I'm not as avid watcher as what Tony is. Obviously, with Cara and yourself
Yep.
now, I'm watching a lot more
Yep.
as well too, and I do love it. I believe what they were saying with regards to Rich Froning, who it still holds the title, I guess, for the number one. And he said Matt Fraser looks like he's going to shut that down pretty quick. Is that he was great across the board as well too. Like he was really consistently finishing up the top of the leaderboard, but not necessarily winning a lot of events. Was that true?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. So they both are very good at getting a lot of top 3 finishes, like second and third, sometimes fourth and fifth, but just pretty much in everything.
Yeah.
Like that's just kind of how they've rolled. And once Rich sort of sorted out his running and things like that, because he wasn't big on running or swimming for that matter, his finishes were, I think most of them definitely top 10s, and then maybe a couple of outliers, whereas Matt currently, his outliers are as far back as 11th, like it's not like he's placing 30th in any events.
And he's also winning quite a few, isn't he? I
Yes.
mean, how many did he win?
I think he took out 3 events this year.
It's insane.
Yeah, he's just like he's setting an all new standard. Like there's a standard, but it's not where he's at. He's on it at currently,
Yep.
and I think people will be able to close that cap. I really do. I think if you go in there just knowing that or thinking that Matt's just going to win and win and win, you're probably not setting yourself up for a super successful games campaign.
So let's talk about mindset, because it's something I really appreciate what we spoke about last time you came up.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we're on the podcast, we're just having a chat.
Yep.
You approach things very differently than a lot of people. So, and I'm going to paraphrase, but you correct me if I've made any mistakes here, but you say that it's not really about the person that's next to you. You don't, right, I've got to get ahead and I've got to do this. You just focus on running the absolute best race that you can, because you know your body, you know your limits, and you set yourself to run your race. Or is that correct?
100%.
So how do you get into that mindset when you've got somebody who's going past you or seems to be even pulling further away? How do you maintain that level of coolness to continue to run your own game?
Well, I think it's come with experience and time. Back in the day when I first started, if someone was overtaking me, I 100% would have sped up and probably crashed and burned.
Right.
But then over the last few years, I've kind of learnt that you need to set your own pace, and there's nothing saying that other person's pace who's in front of you is incorrect. So you're just sort of taking their word for it if you change your game plan to suit them. It's just it's probably it's not the smartest thing to do, and you can sort of train that, but it also comes with experience. There's been plenty of times where I've lost a workout by a matter of a second or 2 seconds. There's been so many times, and that would have been the difference in going to the games or whatever it may have been, or winning a local competition. But it's really just about, and I think CrossFit in particular, it's just like you got to be so well rounded at so many different things. It's got to really know yourself, and know where your strengths lie, and know where you need to just keep it together and not get caught up in anything else. Yep. There are times when I know that within myself that I can output a little bit more, and in those instances, in events that I'm good at, like the swimming and running and board paddling, stuff like that, bike riding, that I can give it a little bit more. And if people are sort of going past me, I kind of know where they're at, and I know the field quite well. Now I've been there 3 years, so I kind of know where I should be sitting and when to speed up and slow down. But for instance, let's talk about the crit race in regards to speeding up and slowing down. I kind of had a feeling that no one really knew how to ride a crit. So if I saw someone, take off, I'm just like, oh, the pack will catch them. It's just not a problem. Yep. Whereas if I hadn't raced crits before, I would have been like, oh, I've got to get on their tail.
Yes.
But it just comes with experience. And I guess you have to you got to really trust yourself, but be okay. You just got to be really okay with it. Like I remember in 2015, there was an event and it was a chipper workout at the regionals. And
what's a chipper?
So it's like an event that you sort of, it's usually a longer event.
Right.
And you basically...
It's one round for time,
yeah,
generally.
It's basically usually just go through, and it's like you've got a set work in front of you, and it's like it might be 50 box jumps, and then you've got to move forward, and then you do 50 cal row, then you move forward and you do 50 wall balls, and you get to the end and you finish.
So they call it the chipper because you're chipping away at it?
Yeah, correct.
Yep.
And I remember hearing a few guys dropping the bar and moving on to the next move, and I was like, oh man, I'm way behind. Maybe I should speed up. And I sped up, and it was the worst idea. I made a huge mistake. And at that point then I was just like, okay, I just really need to, from now on, just stick to what I know. And if that's my speed, that's my speed. And there's nothing you can do about it. Like at the end of the day, you cannot control how fit the other guys are. Yeah. You just can't control how fit they are. You can only control how fit you are. And if you can only run the 400 meters in 1 minute 5, then don't try and hang with the guy that can run it in 49 seconds. It's just, unless you've done the training for it. So you're better off coming in at 104, 105 or 103 and doing a really good job, or instead of trying to sit with the guy that can run it in 49 and then coming through at 110. Does that make sense?
It does.
So it's just being okay with that. But I guess it's not always ego, but it's also, just inexperience. And people just get caught up in the race and they just go out way too hot. And, Froning is a very good example of not going out too hot. Like he's always the guy that doesn't ever lead to begin with, never leads, but then always just has his pace, sticks to his pace, knows when to kick it up a notch and, put the foot down, and just always slips through and just wins by a couple of seconds. That's just how it always has run. And I looked at that, and he was always, the champ while I was sort of in my interim phase of getting into CrossFit. And I just looked at that and I was just like, that's how I want to run my races.
I also think that how you hold yourself as an athlete is how you hold yourself in everyday life as well. And something that I noticed James is really good at is he has laser focus. Like if he has something that he is focused on, nothing in the side can get in his way, and at times that's very frustrating for me, but I think it's also what makes him such a good athlete, because nothing ever matters on the outside for James. Like nothing ever matters what's going on beside him if it doesn't go to plan. Like if there's something that he wants to do and he's got a plan, he'll set out and he'll do it exactly the way that he plans. Like I've never really seen James like lose his cool. Like I really don't see him lose his cool when lots of things happen. I see a lot of stuff happen inside his head, but he's very good at adjusting to things and doesn't make decisions based on something that might be happening in the moment. Like he always looks ahead of what he's doing, and that, like you said, comes into business, relationships, friendships, being an athlete. He just is such a cool, calm and collected guy that he doesn't often run off the course that he's set out for himself unless he, like you said, has made a decision that he feels like he can do more, so he'll put out more. But the same is for everyday life as well. You just... Yeah.
That's why I think so many athletes get into, public speaking, motivation, because the analogies in life are so amazingly similar.
Yep.
Like, I'm
everything.
Yeah, I'm a tragic. I mean, I dislocated my knee in the senior year of high school, which stopped a lot of the ambitions that I had to play sport. And I lamented a lot of that. And it's funny now that I'm older, I'm still a nearly 45-year-old football tragic. Now I'm playing soccer, right, which I've never played. But I absolutely love it, right? I love it. But because I love that competitiveness. But a lot of that stuff I've used in terms of what's successful in sports, at team sports as well, but individual sports. I mean, like, there's so many things that you can take from that. Like, as you say, you don't focus on the competition. You actually focus on what you're doing, because if you keep looking at them, you're not looking ahead to the target, to the prize that you want to get to.
Yeah.
If you're focusing, a lot on what's going wrong, like malfunctions and things outside of your control, you're looking at the problem as opposed to where you want to go. Like, there's so many analogies in terms of being successful in both. So,
and if you want to be a better athlete, aim to be a better human on the days that you're not competing, and that will help you be a better athlete, I think.
Yeah.
If that's your goal.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. So in terms then, how would you rank your performance this year, maybe from previous years, and in terms of obviously looking forward to next year? If you were going to grade yourself in terms of, out of 100, where would you put in terms of how you performed as far as your everything, your mindset, but also how was your body holding up? I mean, I know that Cara, poor thing, she rang Matt. She got a cold, literally just a few days before, which and the nice thing about Cara, and I love her mindset. I'd only just met her the first time that we interviewed her. Man, I really like her. She's such a good. She's really, really cool, right? She's a really nice person.
Yes.
Is that she wouldn't use that as an excuse, and she probably hasn't said anything about it, or made a big deal out of it. So,
and she's probably like that in everyday life as well.
I guarantee she is, because champions know that's the help. That's the hand that I've been dealt. And
like, my preparation this year was 10 times better than I've ever had before. Like, don't get me wrong, it was absolutely amazing. But if I could extend that a little bit more and find that fine line of where it's just enough, just to iron out, like in the sort of the 5 months that I didn't really do a whole bunch of training, just get a few pegboard sessions in there, and iron those things out. That's where it all comes together, and that's what amounts to a successful games campaign. And I really just want to, like, there's been periods of time at the regionals where I was like, I wasn't completely prepared, and there's been times in the last few years where I've been completely prepared, and I go there and everything is executed and I've hit everything the best way I possibly can, and I walk away thinking, couldn't have done that any better. I want to kind of walk away from the games thinking like that. And it took me 5 years to get that right at regionals. So I understand that it's not just like, you go into the games in your first year and think,
I got this.
I got this. Am I going to be that rookie that just goes and dominates? And for the greater percentage, you're not. Like, just there's less than 1%. Like, Brent Fikowski went and he killed it in his first year in 2016. We'd both been working quite closely together for years previous and not making it every year. And funnily enough, the same year we made it to the games for our first time, he went there and he smashed it.
Is he Australian? Sorry,
he's Canadian, but he's also like an Australian. He used to live up on the Gold Coast.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's
an
Aussie. Quite well.
He's an Aussie.
Yeah, we'll claim him.
Put a tattoo on his back and
we've claimed him many times.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're not always gonna go out there and just, you're not gonna like put in all this effort, and sometimes it won't come back to you. And I think a lot of people, especially people that are training for the games, like, you might put in all this effort, and it's a fantastic thing to do because you're setting yourself a goal, and it's stimulating, and it's fun, and it's the unknown. And the fun thing about it is, I guess it's kind of like the addiction in a sense to gambling, because you're putting all your eggs in this one basket and you're just hoping that you go there and it all just works out. Sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. And for me, I kind of like going and, rolling the dice and putting everything into one thing because it makes me feel good. I love training, and I just want to be able to, go there and just execute it the way I want. And if it, I understand that if it takes me a few years, and that's just the way it rolls for me, and some people get it in 1 and some people get it in 5. And
I love
Let's
that
never
analogy.
quit CrossFit, honey.
Oh, yeah.
No.
I love
what's
that analogy.
next.
What's interesting is that, and we were talking a little bit about when we were downstairs about the history of ATP and where we were. The company would not be alive if I didn't know how to play poker.
Yeah.
Because, and the funny is, I liken that analogy to poker, which is not like rolling dice or pulling playing pokies. It's you actually requires a lot of skill, but there's always elements outside of your control that you don't know what the next card to be. You just can play the elements. But I love that. Again, and I think in life, it's a lot like that. You've got to play the cards that you dealt, and you've got to do the best what you can with them. So in terms, and actually Tony was my wife, who loves CrossFit. Elsa went over. She was obviously at the games, and we had some team there as well too. I don't think I could drag her away with wild horses to support you and Cara and Tia and all the Australians actually. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the other Australians, as well too, because there were some people there that really surprised me, and you'd probably know the name straight away. There was one girl that sort of shocked me. She came out of nowhere. I mean, obviously, Tia.
Maddie Sturt?
Where did she finish? She is blonde-haired girl, I think, down from. She was amazing.
Yeah.
Sturt.
Yeah,
it
Sturt.
was. She did. Do you know her?
Yeah, she's a fantastic athlete. Also very young as well.
Yeah, very young.
Yeah, so she went to the games
great.
in 2016 when I first met her. She was only 19 at the time.
Wow.
So she is amazing. She's a fantastic athlete, and she's been, ironing out things, since she first started, and she's super fired up, and she did amazingly well in the marathon row, and she was sitting after the day one, she was in 7th position, so it's just outstanding.
The marathon row, just for people to know, is 47 kilometres of rowing. Is
42.2.
42, but so it is a marathon distance.
Yeah.
And you've got to row it.
Yeah.
I run it and almost die. I've done it a few times and stupidly, but you guys row it.
Yeah.
Why? What? That's
James ran a marathon. What was it, like 3 weeks before the games?
Yeah.
Wow.
Just in the streets of Adelaide.
Wow.
Just put his clock on, went for it.
Yeah.
Just ran a marathon. Never done one before. Because he knew that there was going to be something at the games that would be equally as terrible.
Well,
And
Shane knew there was going to be something there.
Yeah.
So marathon row. Funnily enough, that was actually an element that I am a little bit more privileged to experiencing, because I've done a marathon row before, and I don't think anybody else out there had done one. So when all these workouts were getting released for the games, I'm just like, well, he's just programming for me. This is great. But then you just really want to execute, because it's like almost pressure, because you're just like, oh, there's a crit race. That's fantastic. I know I can do well in that. Or there's a swim paddle. I always wanted the paddleboard to come back to the games.
Oh, so they give you, they'll say it to the trainers, hey, you need to be at least semi-prepared in these style of events?
Not particularly.
No.
Also, we'll find out the workouts maybe a day in advance.
Right.
So
it was just luck that he got programmed.
Okay.
So it was just complete luck that these events were getting released. I'm just like, crits race, love it. Paddleboard, love it. The battlegrounds, the dummy drag with the running.
How did you do it, James? Did you do the fire carry, or because I noticed was it the American guy? He
Cole Sager. He just dragged.
He just dragged it, which it looked like he was going real quick.
I should have done it like that.
Should you?
Yeah, I should have, but it would have. I looked at how much time it would have saved me, and it would have only saved me at the end of the day, probably 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and the gap between 5th place, which is where I placed, and 4th place was 25 seconds. So it wouldn't have made a difference, but it was a better way of doing it.
Yeah.
I guess I just wish, because I was in the second heat, I was in the second to last heat for that one. It would have been better if I was in the last heat, because all the guys that did beat my times were in the last heat. So it would have been more ideal. So then you get a bit more of a race.
Yes.
But that event is great. I love running. It's one of my things that I really enjoy.
Yep.
And there was another few events in there that it was I was really pumped for, like the marathon row. That was an 8th place finish for me.
That was great.
I got to and I started, and this was, I guess, the whole thing about running your own race. Because when I first started, I was like, oh, these guys are going out pretty hot. And only a couple of guys held it together.
You were in 15th for a very long time.
I was in 27th. I started.
Oh, really?
I started out at 27th. I was watching the board, and I'm just like, 27th, don't worry about it. And I was like, I was thinking in my head, should I pick it up? Don't do it.
There you go.
And then
that's the ultimate litmus test, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was for almost 3 hours. It was just you're doing fine. You'll catch up. They're all going to burn out, and you got to just.
Do you reckon you maintained and everyone else dropped off, as opposed to you slightly picking up?
Correct.
Over time?
Yeah, definitely. So I went for the first 21 Ks at about 201 per 500. So just over 4-minute Ks. And
that's kind of what I do my sprints.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then I finished off, and I'd done a couple of half marathons on the rower before, but a couple of years ago, not for a long time. And I did the half marathon. I think my fastest half marathon I was holding 158, but then for the last couple of few Ks, I sped it up to a bit quicker. But I knew I could do 158. And it was a very uncomfortable pace to hold for the last 21 Ks of the marathon. And I was like, you can do it. You've done it before. Pretend you've just started. And easier said than done, but like that's the mindset I had for that. And that's what I did. So we really wanted, talking with Shane about this prior was I wanted to negative split it. I wanted to get to halfway and then go faster in my last half. And it was only 3 seconds per 3 seconds per 500 faster. I went from 27th for a good period of time, and every 5 minutes I'd overtake one more person. 5 minutes later, so 1K later, 1 and a bit Ks later, one more person I'd drop under, and then another 5 minutes later, one more person, and then one more person.
Who won that one? Who won that?
A guy named Lucas Esslinger, he won it.
That's right.
Lucas Esslinger won it.
It's a big guy, isn't he? He's really tall.
He's quite tall, a little bit taller than I am. He'd say he's 5'10", 5'11", so he's not over 6 foot. But
maybe it was the guy that came second.
Brent is quite
that's
tall.
Lucas Hoberg.
Oh, okay.
Hoberg,
Yeah,
that's the guy. Yeah,
he ended up placing third overall, so fantastic.
That's right. And he got he also won another award, didn't he? Right at the end.
He did.
Yeah.
He did. He most improved.
Most improved. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
You do know a lot.
Oh, I
You
watched the
tuned
whole
in.
thing. No, I watched the whole games. I don't know the
Yeah.
names so well, but I mean,
Yeah.
I
You got
really
the stats.
enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's actually a really well.
Yeah.
Like, I love all sports. I mean,
Yeah.
football and rugby union. You
Yeah.
know, probably my favourite sports. But I enjoy anything at a high level.
Yeah.
I loved watching the CrossFit.
You got to go
games.
next year. You got to attend.
Oh,
it's
so much
something
fun.
else.
Tony's going. So she's already said she's booking her flights. But I really enjoyed watching it. And I thought the commentary. There's a few things that they could do better in terms of the caps on the swimming. They should have had numbers so that we knew who was doing. And I'm not going to be critical, but there's a couple of things that they could probably incorporate from other sports.
Totally.
But, yeah.
Well, it was. I actually spoke to Lucas Esslinger after, and I said, "What's the deal with the row, man? How did you do that?"
Yeah.
Because he finished, and I still had about a K to go.
And he's a big dude, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of muscle, which is obviously burning a lot of energy as well. So, I mean, he's big, right?
Yeah. Well, Esslinger is actually not as big, but he's super strong.
Yeah,
Super
He
strong.
looks big.
Yeah. Well, Hoberg is very big.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Hoberg.
Both names
Sorry,
Lucas,
I'm sorry.
and
I'm
both
sorry.
from Europe.
Yes. No. So I'm thinking Hoberg. So So
and he did very well too.
Yes, he did. But no, the guy that came first, he did really well. How did he do it?
Well, I just said, "What's the deal with the row?" I said, "You just enjoy rowing or what?" And he goes, "Well, when I had an injury, I was rowing about 50 to 60 Ks a week."
Right.
So he just said,
He was
and ever
conditioned for
since
Muscle, yeah.
then, and that was a couple of years ago, and he said ever since then, after he got over his injury, he just doesn't row anymore. But he's just kept it.
It's got the muscles.
Gotcha.
Have got it.
Yeah, he just knows how to sit in there and hang in.
Wow.
It's amazing. The whole thing, the training is vitally important. And I guess, of course, the nutrition is vitally important. And I saw what you eat for breakfast is amazing, gut right and all this sort of stuff. So what do you normally feed your dash hounds for breakfast?
Your dash hounds.
They actually,
That's
Honestly,
too funny.
they have an amazing diet.
yeah, they eat very well.
Do they? They
They-
don't just give them half a cucumber each for breakfast?
Sometimes,
Oh yeah,
well,
that was on the video, wasn't it?
It was on the video, and I'm
Yeah.
going,
That's
oh,
their
he's cutting
snack.
up cucumbers. I'm going,
Yeah.
oh, he's going to have a beautiful, alkalizing thing, and it goes to
Goes
the
on the
dogs.
floor.
yeah, oh no,
They're a scrap bin. It's so good.
They love
if
it.
you've got like little ends on your cucumbers or something that
And
you
all
don't
that.
want, just throw it on the ground. They'll just vacuum it up.
That was absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
They love cucumber, carrot. They'll eat kale. Pippi will eat kale. Mr. Nelson, he won't eat
They have
kale.
about
Mr.
10 litres
Nelson.
of bone broth in the fridge at the moment that I make for them.
Wow.
How did you come up with the name Mr. Nelson for your dog? Is that off a movie?
Yeah, it's off Pippi Longstockings.
Yeah.
Kayla.
We call Pippi Long sausage after Pippi Long stockings. And then Mr. Nilsson's his little monkey. And I have a bit of sentimental value with Pippi because it was something that I watched as a kid. It was the first musical theatre show that I did. So I wanted to call them those two. But I really regret Mr. Nilsson because it's a handful. So we just call him Midda now.
Yeah, he's
His abbreviated name is Midda.
Wow.
It's funny because Barney, his name
Yeah.
is Benubius, but Tony calls him
like Benubius
Mr.
too.
Foozum. So
Really?
the
Dog
only
names
nicknames-
should evolve, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Naturally.
So, our boys, he's nearly 17.
He's so
in good
cute.
but Tony feeds him all
Yep.
all organic.
Yeah,
like all
same.
No,
The bath diet is what
Yeah.
we feed our dogs.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mate, I've got a cat. His name's Luther, and everyone calls him Flatface.
awesome.
Because
Where is he? You taking
oh
a picture of his
yeah,
photo
the photo.
down?
I had to remove the photo. It was scaring the children.
Oh, really?
He's not the most.
But that's what I love about cats, though.
I'll show you a photo later,
Okay.
and then you can see whether you love
He's
him
got
or
his
not.
own
Right.
fan page on Facebook.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yeah, oh
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
It's
So
embarrassing.
in terms of nutrition,
Yep.
and I do actually want to talk a little bit about the Australians as well too, but we
Sure.
may as well talk about nutrition.
Yep.
So obviously, as you've matured as an athlete, you've found out what's worked for you and what hasn't.
Yep.
And obviously, you use our supplements, which is great. But outside of that, as far as your macronutrients is concerned, your style of eating, your meals, I know that there would be a lot of people who obviously go, well, James, top 20 in the world. What do you do? What do you do for your food, your macronutrients, your recovery? And then we can talk maybe about your supplements and sort of what that's been to you as well too.
Definitely. So I've tried a lot of different things. Like I've tried like high protein. I've tried going like really high fat. I've tried, at one point I even went vegan for like a little while as well.
It was like a week.
Just to try to see what it was like. It was a few weeks.
I go vegan every night when I go to sleep.
I've just tried just about everything, and it was and like paleo, zone, all that type of stuff.
Because the paleo and the zone movement, but the paleo really big in CrossFit for a while there. It was almost like, I thought, if you wanted to CrossFit, you have to be paleo.
It's almost a bit like that.
Yeah, right.
Well, it was, and it's kind of deviated a little bit from that now, and it's not so, it's not so, I guess, strict in that sense. But it like we would have people come into our gym and say, "Hey, I want to try CrossFit, but don't try and make me do paleo." It's just like, okay, well, I never was. Which is completely fine because I'm not completely paleo, and I think you can still thrive outside of it's really what works for you. And as I said, I've tried a lot of things, but and I was trying to tackle my biggest weaknesses. My biggest weakness was chronic undereater. Like I just wouldn't eat food.
Yeah.
Like just because I'd be too busy, I would, wake up, I would have some food or not have some food, and then I just feel good for the rest of the day. And then that might work for the short term, like that might work for that day. But if I'm training, leading into the games, we were training 6 or 7 hours a day. Like we're in the gym for a long, long time. And you might just be able to make it through that day, but how are you going to feel and back up the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day? So the biggest thing that that Kayla helped me with was making sure I was eating regularly. Well, not so much regularly, but eating enough food in a day, because I would get to the end of the day, I would have probably had, 1,500 calories, and you can't sustain that
considering the output you're doing.
Yeah, and I would be wondering why I would, feel great one day and wake up the next day or 2 days later and feel average, and like one day I'd be back squatting 190 kilos, and then 3 days later I'd be back squatting 150, and I'd feel the same. It's just like, what is going on? And I was just underfed.
Yep.
So we've always, ever since Kayla and I first met, like I think on our first date we exchanged, Kayla made me kale chips and I made her some type of cacao brownie or something like that.
We were stoked.
We were pumped.
Wow.
We were like, hell yeah.
So we'd always go to the more nutrient dense foods, which is good, but it was more about getting enough in. Like I thought I would be okay if I just ate really good quality foods, lots of vitamins and minerals and things like that. And then I was missing, substance. I was missing a lot.
We made you track how much you were eating, and it was quite shocking.
It was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Then I wasn't having a lot of carbohydrates. Like I remember for the 2016 games, I reckon I was probably having about maybe 300 grams a day of carbohydrates. And this year, in comparison, I was having more like 650, 700, 750, depending on what I was doing. After the marathon, I think that day I had like 850, 900.
Sure.
But it was just having to figure it out, and it was experience, but it was just more about getting enough food in for me. But yeah, I always try and eat really clean and healthy, and like during the season and stuff like that, I'm not the one to have a cheat meal or anything like that. I want to have good quality food. I want to always be, hydrated. I'm always thinking about what I can do to, make my performance better and train better and all that type of stuff. So,
I mean, if you're going to have a cheat meal, what are you going to eat?
Well,
and when are you going to eat it?
See,
what's your dirty little secret?
Well, Tia and Shane, because I spent a lot of time with Tia and Shane leading up to the regionals, and we've had this conversation before, and they always give me grief for it, but they'll be like, we want to go out and have like steak and chips, and James just wants to sit at home and just have yogurt and
nuts.
Yogurt nuts. And I'm just like, it's not exactly it's not my favorite go-to, but I'm
you love spinach pancakes.
I'm a massive pancake fan, so I'll usually, but if I make my pancakes, like I like them like if I have pancakes, I like them the way that I make them.
Spinach pancakes.
So I'll make them.
Never had spinach pancakes.
I'll have to make you some. It's
Wow.
really quick and easy. I can make them in like.
And when do you eat them? So obviously savoury, is it something that you have with dinner or in between meals?
Oh,
or
you can have any.
have them
You
for
can
breakfast?
Yeah, you could have them for breakfast. You
Yep.
can have pretty much any way you like. I'll like basically what I'll normally do is I'll basically just, it's pretty simple. I'll just get some, Bob's Red Mill gluten-free all-purpose flour, and
Yep.
I'll get some of that. I'll get some eggs. I'll get some salt, like either sea salt or Himalayan salt. And that's basically your basis. And then I'll blend up spinach or kale or whatever you want to put in it. You can put cucumber in it if you want. Just blend it all up, and then that's your liquid base.
Uh-huh.
And then you just mix all that up together, and then go for gold. But then usually what I'll do is I'll have my first few will be, with either some nice chicken tenderloins or some other type, something else, some other type of protein. And then from there, I will usually finish off with a couple or a few, nicer tasting, sweeter ones, like maybe with some, organic maple or
Yep.
some lemon or something like that.
Yep.
We try to hit the spot with quality food, but it's not to say that sometimes we don't enjoy a pizza or a burger or
course.
some chips or something like
Yeah.
that.
And I think a lot of people will be relieved to hear
Yeah,
that.
which is
yeah.
why I wanted to add that in, because
Yeah.
yes, spinach pancakes are amazing, but we try and obviously incorporate balance, but we don't say no to things just because
Sure.
they're
Oh,
not
yeah.
aligned with immediate.
But
Yeah,
that,
probably
that
not
would be
else.
your once in a while type food.
Yeah.
Obviously, not your
Absolutely.
everyday food.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And Carla, on your website, just going back to you've got a great nutrition coaching website. You have this wonderful statement. It says, and I'll just quote you. So sorry.
That's all right.
Everybody is different, and we don't force any one way of eating on anyone! Exclamation mark. I love it.
Absolutely not.
I love it.
There's no right or wrong. There's no
No.
good or bad. There's just constant improvement.
And that's what we're going to be talking about next podcast. So
Right.
yeah. So and that little advertisement for the next podcast we're going to do one specifically with you, Kayla, so that we
Yeah.
can actually talk about your background. Because I mean, again, if we started talking to both of you, and this has already been a long podcast,
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
think
wow.
we probably wouldn't have enough time.
We
to
could-
cover
We
off
could,
on
we could have
everything,
made
so-
this one part 1, part 2, part 3.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we've only gone through only the crit race at the games.
No, it's
But in terms of obviously your nutrition, you take that very seriously. Obviously, finding ways to eat for you, which obviously that's something that Tony loves about you as well too, Carla, because you've really helped her with her type of eating. And it's funny because I'm very similar. I get really into the zone and don't eat anywhere enough food, which I actually have to fix up. But so obviously, from a performance point of view, a lack of calories, a lack of carbohydrates was obviously making your performance suffer.
Correct. Totally. And as soon as I started adding in more carbohydrates to what I was eating, because I was like quite predominantly high fat, I started.
Because that's the whole paleo thing. It's
Sure.
like more fat.
Yeah.
We
Of
kind of
course.
subscribe to that.
Yeah.
Which we love, and we think the principles are great, but we didn't try all high carbohydrates until now and found
Well,
that James loves it.
And look, one of the interesting things, and again, I appreciate all people are different in the way that they respond, but typically when you're going into a ketogenic based diet or you're utilizing fat for fuel, Matt will say this as well too. It actually it's almost like training at altitude. So when you switch back in the carbohydrates, which is an easier source for the body to use, it should actually see a significant improvement in strength.
100%.
So it's not bad to go ketogenic
Yeah.
for a lot of people do it based on reducing insulin so that they
Yeah.
can obviously drop body fat, and I get that.
Yeah.
And some people do it for brain chemistry and
absolutely.
all the rest of it. But as far as performance is concerned, typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Matt would
No, you're
normally
right.
suggest that. Great, do that for a period of time. It actually is
Yeah.
almost like training at altitude, and then add the carbs back in,
Yeah.
and you're gonna go
Yeah.
gangbusters. with
Yeah,
strength.
definitely. And my performance increased so much when I started adding adding more carbohydrates and just eating enough food. Like I would just go without. So I think that was the biggest key for me. It wasn't so much quality. It's not like I was going out and having a burger every night or anything like that. It was more so just eating enough food and getting it in, and especially at the games.
Sure.
Like at the games this year, I did eat more than years previous. I probably could have tweaked it a bit, and that's something to learn and to work on. But yeah, and especially just getting quality stuff. I only want to usually put into my body quality stuff all the time, and that goes for supplements as well.
So supplements. What I mean, and obviously you're using our stuff. I mean, obviously people that are following on social media see the different sort of products that we use.
Yep.
By the way, the No Way pancakes. I don't know if you've made Tony's No Way pancakes.
I have.
They're really great.
Yep.
My boys eat them as well too. So for 4-year-olds, they work really well, which is great because they taste nice.
I've got a good recipe for that too.
Well, you should share it. Actually, we'll get it from give it to Elsa, and we'll whack it up, and we can put it as James one.
It's
Pop
with
some spinach in there.
It's with the AMP-V.
Okay.
Ooh,
It's
cool.
Oh yeah, it's good.
Amazing.
Really?
It's so good. James was like, "Guess what's in this?" And I tasted it. I'm like, "That's AMP-V."
Wow. Okay. Cool.
It's so
Great.
good.
Yeah.
So in terms then of supplementation, what was your understanding before you started using ATP's products? What were you using, and then what was it that you've been using that you've been finding has been working really well for you?
Yep. So back when I first met Kayla, we were on the health bandwagon, and we were trying to be as healthy as possible. And I was obviously competing. Kayla was going through a phase where she was trying to get as healthy as she possibly could, and we're trying to figure out where we could source the best supplements. Like we wanted to get good quality this, good quality that. We wanted better protein powders and things like that.
But every website was like, "We are the best, and we source from the best place, and the number one." And we were so overwhelmed with it. We tried so many different ones.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought I just interjected.
No, perfect. And we really struggled, and we had to try and we found that there was probably more of a market in the US. So then we started going on iHerb and things like that. And then along the way, like I was doing a lot of research, trying to find out what other people thought was the best quality. So prior to this, I was using a lot of Thorn products and things like that. And there was another company that I can't remember who worked, one of the US track guys. I was looking into that as well. And then I also had some friends that were like Olympic cyclists and things, and they kind of tried to point me in the right direction. But when I found ATP, I was like, and especially listening to the podcast and how good they were, and how you guys source your products and where you get it from, and how much
testing protocols.
Yeah, the testing protocols and how much it means to you to get a good quality product. I was like, can't have anything else. It's Australian. It's Australian. It's quality. It's like everything about it is what I look for, and the range of products is what I look for. Like I always wanted something that was especially something for like your adrenals. That's something I really, really wanted. And when I started hearing about that, and then when I started listening about the AMP-V, and then I'd already actually tried the infrared, and I was just like, that's something that I need as well, because I was majorly into juicing my own beetroots. So I was just like trying to get in all this beetroot juice, and I was just like, you know what, there's got to be a better way. And so it was just something that naturally I was drawn to. And that was, just trying to increase the quality. And like Kayla was saying before, we're always looking for progressive improvement. It was something that I was drawn to, and I'm always trying to get better at my nutrition and increase my performance. And I just couldn't look past it.
Great. And in terms of the products that we sell, what would be, if you had to choose, say, 2 products that you'd go, these are my go-to products, I have to use them.
Yep.
Which ones and why?
Well, definitely I would have to say probably, just to cover all my bases, I would always, choose multifood.
Yeah.
Like I like multifood, the botanicals. It's just got a wide range of kind of everything. So if I am, missing things, which I would be in my diet, then it's, it's just covering my bases. And I do so much work. In a day that my body is, regenerating so much stuff. Like I just feel like if I'm breaking it down so much and, causing a lot of oxidative damage and, all this stuff that I do to my body, I need to be replacing it with the right factors to help replace the things that I'm breaking down.
Yep.
So multi-food would have to be one. And the other one that it's a really tough one, because they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand for me because I put them together.
What's that?
It's infrared and AMP-V.
Right.
So I put them together, and I really like that. But okay, AMP-V. So I'd have to say AMP-V. Just like I really like how much of a good oil profile, fat profile they have. It's just it is everything. Plus, I really like the way it tastes.
Yeah.
I really enjoy it, and like it's something that I can have multiple times a day, and especially if I'm getting ready for 2 work. I usually do 2 sessions a day, so I can have it before that.
Yep.
Plus, it also keeps me sort of full, even though I should be eating, full while I'm working out.
Sure. And look, that's probably one of the only things that people need to be aware of with the AMP is it does seem to have trigger a satiety effect, which for people who are obviously trying to lose body fat, that's great. But for people who need to maintain a certain level of calories, you just need to be mindful that it can take the edge off the hunger. Again, most people would go, that's a great selling benefit. But again, for yourself, that needs the calories. But yeah, grip strength, the fact that the mental clarity, that it crosses the blood-brain barrier. There's no stimulants in there, so you can use it in the evening with training, and it's not going to keep you awake. It's as I said, it's one of Matt's products that he's most proud of. That's why we put a patent on that product. Because it is so unique and so different. No artificial sweeteners, no nothing, and all of the omegas that are in there are all vegan. Like, it's funny because we're obviously expanding our market internationally at the moment, and we're having purchasing officers coming back specifically from the States. And they're going, where do we put this product? And we're like, well, we explain it to them and like, this is hard.
Does it fall under a category?
No, it can't. It sort of goes across a lot. And that's because it does so much in the body.
Oh, well, and the other massive bonus with everything that is in this, and it doesn't go for everything, it doesn't go for other companies, is that everything in here you can cook with.
Yeah.
It's just like I can put the No Way into a pancake, and I can put the AMP-V in there too. And if you want to open up the capsules of your CoreRx, you can put them in there as well. And you can change the colors around. It's super cool.
At the moment, I've got a smoothie which has got CoreRx, multi-food, ZMST, No Way, resilience. It's got everything. Because I'm so bad. I like, Sam, can you please make me a shake just so that I know that I'm kind of getting everything that I need. Yeah.
And it's all just it's all
just
real food.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what people are not. Maybe call it uneducated to a point, but when they look for supplements, they're looking for things that aren't real.
That's right.
They're looking for things that
like adding things, trying to add extra or more of something rather than just allowing the body to internally find its natural homeostasis.
And isolated artifacts, which are where everything's been stripped away except for one single thing, but there's the cofactors and sometimes the ingredients that are found naturally. And I mean, again, if you can get a good concentration of those things, then you're all of a sudden starting to get additional performance aspects from it as well too. So,
100%.
But yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. And it's nice to be able to talk to athletes as well, in terms of what they find are sort of making a difference for them.
Yeah,
so.
and I guess, and I could go on about every product and why I love it, but the other thing I really, really liked, and I guess it's sort of a cool fact, is with the No Way especially, is I never knew that basically, like our muscles are obviously made up of a few things, but most of the power that we draw out of our muscles, like the No Way is helping us replenish the exact area that we need.
Yes.
I didn't know that. Before I read that, I didn't realize that.
It's 30% of the muscle is actually made up of the
collagen.
The collagen and what is it, Steve? I'm forgetting the name.
What's bicep? Right?
No.
No, the thing here.
The sock.
Oh, the sock.
The
the fascia.
The fascia.
Oh, I was just trying. I'm not very good at Pictionary.
And this is the thing as well too, is that obviously the anchor points and all the rest of it, and this is where collagen's great, and there's a lot of collagen products coming out to the marketplace as well. The difference obviously is with the No Way is that it's a peptide, so it's all effectively cooked at a certain degrees, and there's a certain amount of peptides in there which impact on mTOR and PPAR. That's the body's ability to build more muscle fiber, as well as obviously upregulating the body's metabolism to help with fat burning. It is just a very, very special protein, and it's funny because the two of the products that you've mentioned are the ones that, from a business point of view, we make the least amount of money on. Multi-food, we make bugger all on, and same with the No Way as well too. But we just want to introduce it into a price point that people feel they can use and justify from switching from a whey-based protein and obviously from the synthetic multivitamins you can get for $9, $10, $20, and they're rubbish. They're actually harmful to the body. And it's funny, I saw another guy, an Australian guy that was on SBS, talking about the dangers of actually utilising and supplementing with synthetics. And maybe he's overstating a little bit, but I don't think by much. And in fact, actually, to tell you the truth, I actually agree with almost everything that he's saying. And this is why we've got to get back to nature. And again, we always rabbit on about it. Anyone who listens to the podcast they go on their soapbox again. But food is not food anymore. And again, we need to, this is why eating fresh, eating local. And I know that you guys, and I know, Kayla, we're going to be talking obviously about your food culture and how you help people with food and you know, the good relationships we should have with food, not the negative ones. But it's so critical. And again, as you said, everything that we look at is from a natural point of view. How does it fit in? You know, we hate synthetics, we hate artificials. We, you know, wherever we can, we try and use things that are found in nature, in a high class, superior way that's been standardized. That's just going to give the results. And I think that's the reason why I think people get such great results on the multi-food, because I think people are missing a lot of the nutrients that they need.
100%.
So,
and also to the and I started really thinking about this a little bit more, was, you know, eating more to the seasons, because it's going to help your gut, and, you know, eating to what is sort of local and what you're sort of locally growing. And it, you know, if you eat the same thing every day upon day upon day upon day, which I know some people do.
Sure.
I couldn't do it because I'd get so bored with it, but
your body doesn't want you to do that either.
It's
you
just
start to crave different types of food if you eat the same thing.
and then you're adding in those, you know, those the gut bacteria, and it's just the same on the same on the same on the same. But eat some different foods, and you're going to be adding in different cultures and other bits and pieces. So I think that's really cool.
And
So-
Jeff, I think you've said this before, nature knows best.
It does.
Like, and I just love the whole idea that, like, coconuts, for example, will grow in humid temperatures, because not only is that's where they grow really well, but that's where we sweat, that's where we lose our electrolytes. So Mother Nature is saying, here, replace your electrolytes with this food that I've grown for you in this climate specifically. Like, things grow in a place where our bodies are going to need them at that certain time of the year, and with the exposures that we have to other things. Like, if you just listen to, you know, the world the way it was meant to be, it would be so much easier.
It would be really good.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, I just really want to mention again, just quickly, the Australian athletes.
Sure.
I mean, obviously, we've got a really good relationship with Cara, and she's just such a lovely person and a fantastic athlete. We can't go past Tia, of course, finishing first. I mean, she did great. And I mean, it's so cool to see Australian athletes right up the top.
100%.
So the other one as well, too, was, I forget the double-barreled name. Dean.
Yeah, Dean Lindelade.
Yeah, I mean, again, I didn't know a lot about him before coming into the games.
Yeah.
I knew of Calm Porter because of his relationship with Brandon Swan, and we knew those guys out there as well too. Great guys.
Yep.
How did Dean go? I mean, he went great, didn't he?
Yeah, he did really, really well. And, you know, it's been a long time coming for Dean. Like, he's been at regionals, you know, multiple times, and, you know, it's just always been just one little thing here and there that have just, you know, impacted him from getting to the games. Like, I think he's always had the ability, and, like, he's definitely had the potential, and it's usually just, you know, something out of his control that's, you know, just impacted getting him there. And, you know, good on him. Like, he's just stuck at it and, you know, overcome a lot of adversity trying to get to the games, and he's just gone there and he's, you know, put a stamp on it. Like, it's fantastic to see, and it's good to see some more Aussies coming through and, you know, giving the world really a run for their money. It's awesome. It's fantastic.
And that's great. And Dean, we're going to smash you next time. So,
Watch out.
Sorry, Dean.
Yeah, absolutely.
And smashing.
Yeah. But
It's
no,
all
I
done
mean,
in a friendly way.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's a good thing about the
great
Aussies.
things. Yeah.
100%. That's a good thing about the Aussies. Like
You're all mates.
We're all mates. It's at the end of the day, we're all there to compete, but we're compete as individuals, but we're going over there kind of like as a team.
Yep.
Like, we all hang out, and we all can, like, are so pumped if one of us does really well in an event. Like, we're, you know, super stoked for the other person. So it's a really good environment, and all the Aussies are super down to earth people, like we all are.
Which is what you want. I mean, again, going to the States and doing business in the States, typically Americans like Australians because we are quite easygoing.
Yeah.
We don't get too excited normally,
Yeah.
you know, about things, and I think that's you know, it's a great culture for that. Sometimes we're a little bit laid back. Sometimes there's a bit of that tall poppy syndrome that comes in. But again, I think because you guys are at that elite world class level, obviously, you know, there's probably not too much of that, you know, with you guys over there. So
Yeah, we all get along.
yeah.
And get behind the Aussies in this sport, because we're doing shit in the cricket and rugby. I mean, let's face it.
Hey,
you know,
and in the rugby, I say, well, I was born in New Zealand.
Don't,
So
don't
Fair
mention
enough.
rugby.
For the other
I mean,
week, yeah.
Choose
you
your
know,
hometown.
you know, look, it's a great sport to follow. I mean, you know, I remember, you know, watching it on Netflix. One of the first things I watched when I got Netflix, it was that beautiful run up the hill there. I'm thinking that looks horrible, but I couldn't get my eyes off it. It was like, this is torture. I love it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that we try and get across is that, look, at the end of the day, like, we're testing fitness, and people see fitness as just running, like, or just swimming.
Yeah.
Or just this, but that is one aspect of fitness. Fitness is multimodality. It's endurance, it's agility, it's strength, it's speed, it's power, it's coordination. It's all these things that amount to fitness, because it's not just one thing, and we're trying to be as well-rounded as we possibly can, and not the best in that particular realm, but we want to be able to jump high, run fast, run long distances fast, run short distances fast, swim well, do everything. Like, give us a task. And for instance, there was an event at this year's games called Chaos. We had no idea what we were doing. We walked out there. We still didn't know what we were doing. We got up to the first piece of equipment after they pressed the go button. We still didn't know what we were doing. And they just said, pull on the ski erg for as long as I tell you to. And it was just like, we had to do 30 cows. We didn't know that though. So it was basically get given a task, be able to complete that task in a satisfactory time. Like, we don't want to be able to give you a task and for it to take, it's supposed to take 10 minutes, but you take 2 hours. That's not fitness. Like a physical task. We want you to be able to do everything really well. So no matter what you get given in life, whether you're a firefighter, whether you're a nurse, or whether you're doing even an elderly person living at home by themselves, living autonomously, we want you to be able to do that task well.
Yes.
Like, that's the key.
You want to change a tyre.
Yeah.
They're using this in the literature, the medical literature. They're looking at CrossFit for training the army, those sort of things. And what a perfect training opportunity to overcome and get your task
and
out
you
there.
look at it from an aesthetics point of view as well too, which I appreciate. A lot of people do it for that reason. A lot of people do it for competition. A lot of people do it for whatever reasons are personal. But running increases the acromansis, which is
acromantia in the gut,
which is carbon-based compound which feeds on the mucus that you create, that burning that you get in the back of the throat, which actually helps to alter your gut bugs, which actually makes you
beneficial,
leaner, right?
Yeah.
Which, and again, so a lot of people go, screw cardio. Well, I understand that from a point of view if you're just looking for a look, but as far as actually fitness, gut health, and all the rest of it, actually, and Luke Lehman, who comes on the show from time to time, it says, there's also things with the ventricles and the heart where you can only get that from, running and hitting the pavement or endurance cardio-based workouts. Sure, you might be able to create a physique that looks a certain way, but for true health as well too, lifting weights. I mean, we know the importance for diabetes in terms of shuttling sugars backwards and forwards, the stress that it puts on the bone. Exactly, bones. I mean, look, and this is the thing about CrossFit that's so great, is that you can go at your own pace. You can always improve. You're in a supporting community. You can build a better body that's everything, cardiovascular, for your heart, for your lungs, for your muscles, for your bones, for every single function in your body. It's sort of targeting everything.
And it's stimulating. And I think the biggest misconception is that it hurts people or it's too intense for the majority of the public. But at the end of the day, if you're going to the right place to learn, they will take it they'll take it where it needs to be for that person. Whereas what you get to see on YouTube and the clips that you get to see is usually people getting ahead of themselves, or the people that shouldn't be teaching CrossFit or being a representative of CrossFit trying to teach it because it's a new in thing. It's just like, it's at the end of the day, it is good for you if you do it and learn under the right place. And that's plain and simple. You're doing functional movements. You're in a positive environment with people that are like-minded and all looking to do the same thing. I don't know how that can be harmful unless you're learning from the wrong person, and in that case, that goes for any sport.
Absolutely.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, I can go to the gym and drop a dumbbell on my foot, and I'm sure people have done that as well too.
Exactly.
So, I mean, in terms of that's right.
Yeah, or I could go to the footy club and I could learn how to tackle incorrectly from a coach that doesn't know what he's doing, and it's exactly the same as learning how to snatch from a coach that doesn't know how to snatch.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
I just love the variety. I mean, Usain Bolt's in Australia now trying out for soccer, which is great. But his job...
I hope he goes right.
Yeah. His job was to run 100 metres. He would have paced it out. It goes for 10 seconds or less in his case. And that's what he did for 12 years. And I'm not please, I love Bolt. He's a superstar. But that was his job. He knew exactly what was coming up in 4 years' time. He knew exactly what he had to do. This is what I love about this sport, is it's so varied. You can't be good at one thing.
And it's pushing human potential as well, because for a long time they said, the best CrossFitter, or the best runner in CrossFit won't be the best runner in the world. But then you look at someone like Tia, and she's the best CrossFitter, but she's also the best weightlifter in her weight class in Australia. And the CrossFit athletes are starting to be competitive with the competitive athletes in in a small domain of a CrossFitter's field, but they're single. It's pushing human potential and showing what's possible.
Well, I was just looking at the statistics where they were talking about the women of 10 years ago and the score that they got, and I think they were working out that the score that the women were getting in that event now, they were surpassing by the second lift or something like that. In terms of they were so, I think most of the women beat the men's scores of 10 years ago. It was just
some of the women beat the men's scores these days.
Well, Tony loves that.
Insane.
She loves the fact
awesome.
that there's
Like
actually
sometimes Tia will squat 20 kilos less than James or something ridiculous like that.
and what Tony loves as well too with regards to the time, it's the same time, it's the same distance,
same movements.
The only thing that there might be is maybe slightly less weight. That's it. Everything else is exactly the same.
And sometimes they're against one another. Like the amazing thing is in some years they've done some of the runs and the swims with all the athletes together.
Right.
And like last year, for example, Tia beat all of the men except one. Is that right? In the swim run.
Yep.
Wow. Love it.
What?
Well, even this
Love
year.
it.
How?
Even this year, Aramo and Tia, they had faster times on the exact same course
And these are the 40 best men.
as all the males.
Wow.
They won by like
crazy.
over a minute. It was crazy.
Great.
It's awesome. It's great to see. Like,
And it's good for equality. It's great for
Oh,
all of
yeah.
them,
Well,
right?
women
So-
have always been seen as inferior athletes, I suppose, and now they're kind of like putting that to the test.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
look at Serena Williams. I mean,
Yeah.
again, you look at some of the athletes now, and it's funny. I was listening to an interview saying the other day, if you could watch any tennis player in the world between Roger Federer, Serena Williams, or Rafael Nadal, who would you pick? And all of them were saying Serena Williams and saying she's probably the best tennis player of all time.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and so again, the thing I love about the equality in sport is that you're right.
Prize money's the same as well.
Yep. CrossFit doesn't go, oh, well, no, you're weaker and, we're going to do
Not as
this.
impressive.
No, it's just, and watching Cara and Tia, honestly, for me, and again, because I love both the athletes, I mean, obviously one we lay claim to a little bit more, but, and we're rooting a little bit harder, but that was as exciting, as watching, Matt, winning, and obviously watching yourself as well too, James, and the other Australians coming through. So, there was, it was equal as exciting.
The females are super impressive.
Yeah.
It's all equally impressive between both. So like what they're doing is what we're doing, and it's always the same. And they don't hold back. They're full on. They go really hard, and they know how to push, and especially these days at this level, as it becomes more professional, it'll just it'll just keep increasing, and I have no doubt that a female and a male will get. So back in the day, it was Dave Castro. He said he awaits the day when we can have, and this was based on a male at the time, when we'll have a male athlete who can back squat over 500 pounds, run a sub 5 minute mile, and do 50 pull-ups unbroken. And we're pretty much there now, and that was back in like 2010 or something like that. So we're pretty much there now, where there'll probably be a couple of people who might be able to do that.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. It's awesome. Again, pushing everything forward. Guys, we have run out of time.
Yeah, that's okay.
But look, thanks so much for joining us, guys, and it's been really good to talk to you. And we're going to come back next week.
Yes.
With Kayla, talking everything about diet, nutrition, your history in terms of reporting and everything.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
It'd be great. All right. And thanks,
Awesome.
guys. And we'll be back next week.
Pleasure.
Okay. Thank you.
And Kayla Bancroft.
Banfield, but thank you. So we just spoke about name pronunciation, but you know what?
terrible.
I like Bancroft. It kind of sounds
good.
like Lara Croft.